Sarah Josepha Hale. And Libby's. That's who we have to thank for pumpkin pie at Thanksgiving. Hale was a tireless advocate of making Thanksgiving a national holiday. She sent President Lincoln like 1,000 letters. And to make her stop, I'm guessing, in 1863, he proclaimed the last Thursday of November as the official day of Thanksgiving. But it was Hale's 1827 novel, Northwood, about life in New England that kind of created this idea, this myth that pumpkin pie is a must-have on the American thanks table. The pumpkin was a really important food crop back in those days. Alas, no longer. I mean, trying to find a good eating pumpkin these days, it's nearly impossible. And let's face it, all that peeling is a little troublesome. The other name, Libby's, as those remember Libby's on the label. I'm old. It's a canned food company originally. And in 1929, they purchased Dickinson and Company, which is famous for canning pumpkins grown in and around Morton, Illinois. Thus, Libby's was in a position to unleash canned pumpkin puree all over the world. Much of that ends up today in pies. Problem is, I think it tastes like, which is why I make my pie with sweet potatoes instead. Only I've reloaded it into pumpkin spice latte sweet potato pie, huh? Pretty snappy name. It's a far, far better pie than I have ever pied before, and that's partially due to our reloaded pie dough, which has dispensed with the lard I originally employed. Let's make one, shall we? First, cut a stick of butter plus 1 tablespoon, so 9 tablespoons total, into thin pats. Now, I know it would be more convenient just to have 1 stick of butter, but just trust me on this one, okay? And please note, we're talking just mid-range grocery store butter here, Land O'Lakes. None of that famous foil-wrapped gourmet stuff, and that's important because we have formulated this crust with the water content of this butter in mind. Now, after slicing, toss those pats with a little bit of flour and stash in the freezer, along with 2 identical metal pie pans for 15 minutes minimum. Next, fetcheth forth your favorite food processor and take 165 grams of all-purpose flour and 3 grams of kosher salt for a quick spin to combine. And no, I am not giving you a volume for the flour. Buy a frickin' scale. Seriously. All right, next. Once it's nice and chilled, retrieve the butter from the freezer. You can add that to the flour mixture and pulse until it kind of looks like small pebbles. 10 1-second pulses does it for me. Then introduce 65 grams, it's a 1/4 cup, of really cold water. Yes, I use a cocktail shaker and ice for this because it's my favorite way to make any liquid cold. And yes, I weigh the water because it's easier for me to read a scale than the numbers on the side of the measuring cup. I drizzle in the water while, pulsing like a second at a time. It's about 5 pulses will do it. And then turn the mixture out onto a large sheet of plastic wrap. Now, we use the wide stuff here, but for normal, home-size rolls, it can work. Just use 2 pieces and kind of cross them over like a big X, okay? All right, you draw the plastic up around the pile, kind of squeeze and press the dough into a ball. Okay? And then flatten said ball into a 1-inch thick disc and refrigerate for 30 minutes. Now comes the tricky part. Not difficult, mind you, just tricky. When you're ready, remove the dough from the refrigerator. Unwrap and place on a lightly floured piece of parchment paper. Dust the top of the disc with some flour and then top with a second sheet of parchment. Just go with me here, okay? Then slowly, gently roll the dough out into an 1/8-inch thick circle. We're shooting for just over 11 inches in diameter here, okay? Now, if the dough is too firm to roll first, don't fight it. Let it sit on the counter for 5 minutes to soften, but not much more, or the fat might get oozy on you, and that's bad. Also notice, by the way, I'm using a French-style rolling pin rather than the traditional American kind with the ball bearings. Just really a personal preference. I think this gives me a little bit more control. Okay, next, retrieve the 2 chilled pans, all right? Follow me. You're gonna invert one pan, place on the counter, and then lay the dough over it. Place the second pan over the dough and press down gently to give it some shape. Flip the whole thing over, take off the top pan, and peel away the second piece of parchment. Now just trim off the excess dough however you like. You could replace the top pan, and just kind of cut around, use it as a guide, but I like to pinch the dough kind of as I go around, so I don't do that. Then put the pan back on, give it a little squeeze, back into the freezer for at least 30 minutes, or if you like, overnight. Okay, when you're ready to bake, position a rack in the center of your oven with a second rack just beneath it. Put a sheet pan on that lower rack to catch any possible dripping fat. I really do need to clean that thing. Crank that oven to 300 degrees. When the oven hits temp, retrieve the pie pan dough sandwich and place inverted directly on the top rack. Bake until the crust just begins to set. I'm going to say 1 hour, and then crank the oven to 375 and continue baking until you can just see the edges of the crust turn deep gold, another 20 to 30 minutes. The final baking time, though, is highly dependent upon the color of your pie plates. Darker plates will accelerate cooking, so start checking after the dough has been at 375 for 20 minutes. If you use light metal, expect the second baking time to be closer to 30 to 40 minutes to avoid underbaking the crust, if at all possible. Then remove from the oven. Flip right side up, remove that top pie pan and cool completely. I would probably do this on a cooling rack while you make the filling, which starts with 2 sweet potatoes. Go ahead and boost that oven to 400 degrees. Okay, back to the sweet potatoes. I'm not exactly sure the make and model here. Maybe Jewels or maybe Garnets. Beauregards would be fine too. Now, I need 380 grams of cooked flesh for my pie. And I'm going to assume a 20% loss for moisture, skin, stuff like that. And that means I need, 475 grams of raw material. Now these two together are 487, close enough for me. I'm going to be fine with that. Now, as for the rest of the software, we need 3/4 cup of heavy cream, 150 grams of dark brown sugar, 2 eggs. As far as the spices go, my original pie called for a teaspoon of good quality ground cinnamon. I like Saigon, and half a teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg. But this new pumpkin spice latte variety variant includes 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground clove, 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground allspice, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cardamom, and 1/4 teaspoon of ground grains of paradise. That is the seeds of Aphramomum melegueta, all right, a cousin of ginger, actually. These little seeds have long been a secret weapon of mine. They've got a mouth vibe kind of between black pepper and black cardamom without actually tasting like either. You could skip it, but I wouldn't. In fact, I even have this little hand coffee grinder I use for those. We also need a scant 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt. So, step 1, roast these guys until very soft, 400 degrees, about an hour, then cool until they're peelable. And turn the oven down to 350 degrees, that's important. Grab your favorite stand mixer. Mine's still going strong after 25 years. By the way, I'm changing over to a glass work bowl because it's a lot easier for a camera to see through. This is not a plug for Sony, by the way, but it could be. As I said, when cool, you're gonna peel the sweet potatoes. It's a little messy, but honestly, fingers are the best way to do this. And just get them into the work bowl. Load up your paddle attachment and mix on medium to medium high for 1 minute. And stop. Scrape down the paddle, and then introduce the brown sugar and work that in just at low speed to integrate. And then follow with the cream, the eggs, and finally the spices: cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, allspice, cardamom, grains of paradise, salt. Beat on low speed just to fully incorporate. I'll give it another minute. Now, for a wee bit of a workout, but totally worth it. Park a wide but fairly fine mesh strainer or sieve over a medium bowl. Load up the mixture and just kind of press it through. You're not trying to strain the mixture. You're gonna literally push it through the mesh to break up any small fibers. Could you skip this step? Well, not if you want a silky smooth pie, you can't. Now, I usually begin the process with a regular rubber or silicone spatula. And then, when the level gets down a bit, I switch over to a bowl scraper, plastic. I would keep like half a dozen of these in your kitchen at all times, just to be safe. Highly flexible multitaskers. Still, this is going to be a messy process, but it can be fun too. Maybe that's just me. Be sure when you're done to scrape off the bottom, the underside of the sieve. There'll be a lot of goodness there. Get as much of this smooth goo as possible into the finished crust. An offset spatula will help smooth things over. Not that I ever smooth things very well at all. Bake until the pie just jiggles slightly in the center and reaches an internal temperature between 165 and 170. It's going to take 40 to 45 minutes. Remove and rest 1 hour to cool on a rack. I like mine cold, so after cooling, I typically cover and refrigerate overnight. I like mine with a bit of homemade whipped cream on top. Also helps cover any cracks that may have happened if you overcooked it a little. I didn't. Anyway, just plain whipped cream or slightly sweetened. I personally like a coffee whipped cream that's made by whipping together 240 grams of heavy cream, 13 grams of 10x confectioner's sugar, 15 grams of coffee liqueur, 1/4 teaspoon of instant espresso powder, and 1 to 2 drops of vanilla extract. Just beat to medium peaks. Delicious. Keeps for days, unless, of course. Okay. Oh, you want a beauty shot, I bet. And that, my friends, is my favorite Thanksgiving dessert. Pumpkin spice latte sweet potato pie. If you want to actually make pumpkin spice latte, no,